Ours was pretty good, but then he's trying to come into our world, so we had to get out of that world.
No.
Yeah,
So now that you're in your own world again,
most of the time,
what's the next big thing for you?
Oh, hi.
Stay clean shaven? Will
You've
you
caught me
shave one eyebrow?
yeah.
listening to Dave Zabriskie, U.S. cyclist, talk about manscaping
You get all furry.
and looking at the coronagraph from Stereo A,
Season continues, but
showing a little bit of ejecta.
the off season.
But is it earth-facing?
Going into the winter, I prefer to have some facial hair.
By the way, happy Thanksgiving, viewers. Patrons, look for a recipe for creamed cabbage coming this week.
But now you've got a child at home, and you've got to set an example.
Yes, I have a boy.
All right, enough of Zabriskie's manscaping. Anyway, again, there is a little bit of ejecta there from Stereo A. Let's look at the LASGO C2, which shows that it's going to miss to the west. A prime example of non-Earth-facing ejecta. There you see it on the LASGO C2. And here's the local yellow dwarf at 171 angstroms. Small, weak active regions there south of the equator are not sunspots. A little bit of filamentary behavior around the eastern limb as well as the northeast. There's a view from the northerly regions in 171 angstroms. Here's a 193 angstroms view. North Pole coronal hole visible. And there will be a lot of interesting stuff about that in a moment. Here's the south, a very well-defined coronal hole, actually surrounding that active region. By the way, this is what the North Pole coronal hole looks like from above, as there was a mission to go photograph it. And it may not be the way you'd expect the sun to look if you were looking down the pole, but that coronal hole stays there all year round through solar maximum. Anyway, we've left links to the article. The spacecraft was, I believe, an ESA craft. The Proba 2 satellite. So, in fact, let's link to it as well, as that's a fine job. Now, they had to put together a composite image, which is why you see these abnormalities here. It's because they had to do 4 flybys to get the total picture, as the sun is kind of big. I don't know if you're aware. Anyway, we accept cookies, and we'll leave links to all that. Back to solar data, the X-ray flux is flatlined, but a little bit higher than it's been, as we see a small uptick in activity in general. Here's a real-time solar wind, which it's 411 right now in Lehigh Valley / Pennsylvania / US. Phi angle down at 118. And the BT-BZ, we see a slightly negative BZ and a fairly high BT. BT is at 4.4. That's the total field strength of the sun's B field. Solar wind density, 3.3 or so protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed, 428, a fairly nominal solar wind speed. There's the data from ACE. And I just wanted to share the whiteboard that we used on yesterday's electric view video. If anybody wants to see any of these graphics or do anything with them, feel free. The whiteboard is public. No need to log in or anything like that. Please don't vandalize it too much. And if you're going to mess with these images over here with the animated sun, just be careful, as they're a little bit finicky. Trust me, I built them. So anyway, these are some of the things we talked about yesterday on the electric view discussion. And I'm paying the price for it as my right ear is jacked up. Here's a small little bit. Here's a teaser clip of 8 seconds or less, aka fair use ready. Shout out to Neil Thompson and crew. I'm not going to rattle off names, but anyway, here's a clip.
On the Earth. And so, and then you were talking about the forces that were, which is kind of what I wanted to jump in on earlier on, is that the ancients make it.
Anyway, there's a teaser. It's a 3-hour and 18-minute long convo between lots of interesting, smart folks. Let's look at the Geospace Magnetosphere movies. We're going to look at all 3 today, as we've made some changes to the format. So beware. Beware, viewers. We've made changes to the format. I'll be standing up and leaving in the middle of it. And then returning in a stealthy fashion. There's the density. We just showed you the velocity. And we do see some variations in the solar wind density there. Keep in mind, low density shown in white, high density shown in dark blue. And here's the pressure, the one we typically show most days. And for you new viewers out there, thanks for tuning in. This is the University of Michigan Geospace model. I would note the massively offset magnetohydrodynamic pressure on the dawn side when looking at the equatorial plane view. Here on the left pane, we've got the magnetotail is a bit oddly shaped from that view, and you're looking at the equatorial plane as if you're looking down from the pole. As the meridional plane view is from the side, and that is offset because of the angle as we approach winter. Here's the view from the global geomagnetic perturbations. Here's the Earth's B field. And yes, I am interested in going to Antarctica and placing magnetometers. That is something I would be all about doing. We'll let that play all the way through as it's refreshed itself here in the middle of the feed. We produce these videos unedited on purpose. As the Wu-Tang Clan would appreciate, we're keeping it raw over here. And we're intentionally not editing the videos. It's not that we can't, we just don't want to. And it looks like we have 4 poles, honestly. 2 in the north, 2 in the south. Moving on to tonight's conjunction. If you're able to see the western horizon, just after sunset, you should see Jupiter and Venus, the 3rd and 4th brightest objects in the sky. If you want to learn more about stuff like that, check out spaceweather.com, the place I first started studying the sun back in about 2002. It's got all kinds of great stuff like near-Earth objects. And it does list the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, which is at 71 right now. Just barely coming off solar minimum. GOES magnetometer is in just a normal range here. And looking surprisingly spiky. Let's see what happens between midnight and noon for the satellites. We are kind of in the middle of the South Pole oriented portion of the current sheet though. As you can see in the Gong 2, it should be shown in red. And you can see the Earth's field force line there is quite solidly in the South Pole oriented field. Here's the last frame. Not expecting a whole lot of changes in that in the next day or two, as there's not a lot of activity on the sun's surface. Not a lot of magnetic activity at the moment, such as sunspots. KP index is at 2. So pretty steady over the past couple days. Let's do cosmic rays. By the way, you can access older data on these. the Apatity and Barentsburg neutron monitors. So there's Apatity and Barentsburg. Small uptrend at Apatity over the past 5 days, and pretty flat at Barentsburg. Next we'll look at Athens. Here's the Athens neutron monitor. Mexico City's next. These are the ones that we look at typically twice a week. Another spot where you can access older data, folks. There's the last 30 days at Mexico City. Moscow's back to returning data. And Moscow showing a precipitous downtick. Cosmic ray flux. Looking a little suspect there. What do you think? Is that Russian fake news data? It's all good. Let's hope that's real data, actually. Are cosmic rays bad or good? Or is it a combination of both things? Is it a double-edged sword, folks? Here's the Oulu neutron monitor, located in Oulu, Finland. Shout out to Ulla Odrup, one of the best names on YouTube, Ulla Odrup, teaching me how to pronounce words that are Finnish. Anyway, here's DOMC Antarctica. And there's DOMB Antarctica. Let's move on to more data, such as the electron flux, which is in a fairly nominal range, getting a little on the high side, and we are expecting an uptick in this, a small electron storm light. Here's the relativistic electrons, and again, expecting those to go up as well. Please leave a comment if anybody else is putting up electron forecasts on YouTube, because we'd be very interested in hearing anybody predicting electron flux forecasts. Here's the F2 layer, and we're seeing anomalous charge-ups over the South Pacific as we have for a week. So for instance, if you study the ionosphere and link it to earthquakes, you may want to, I don't know, subscribe to our channel. Since we cover all the data every day, so perhaps you don't have to. Here's the latest image. And we've just shown the last 6 hours at 15-minute intervals. Extreme charge-discharge setups in the ionosphere over the South Pacific. I'll say it again. We've shortened the earthquake section to include only 6+ magnitude quakes. Unless one happens in Pennsylvania or something like that, then I'll totally report it. I'll still scroll up the list. Got to conserve the voice, folks. Got to conserve the voice and the souls, because you never know. You never know how many gold coins you have for Charon's boat when you're trying to get down the river Styx. And when talking about quakes, the ones over 6 magnitude equals 0. Here's the volcano rundown. Right after we show the pressure maps. And welcome viewers who tuned out until the music stopped. Please let us know if you're using a spectrum analyzer or some other software to figure out when the music stops. Anyway, there's where pressure zones will be. At 14 Zulu. I tried to stop it at 10 and 11 and 12 and 13. We got it stopped. By the way, it's 4:22 a.m. Do you know where your pressure zones are? Perhaps get the windy.com mobile app. And I just clicked on some shit that I absolutely did not click on. Pardon the French, but what is this crap? By the way, the kids are not made for videos. Did you know the kids are not made for videos? Holy jeez, oh whiz, I had to climb back up. I fell down the trapdoor. I apologize. Volcano rundown includes Mount Aso. which is producing an unknown size volcanic cloud. Who knows? We don't know. Possible activity. Sakurajima exploding. 7,000 foot plume there. Sanjiang-Api, flight level 8,000. Dakono, flight level 7,000. Popocatépetl, flight level 21,000. Ravenador, new emissions there. Sabancaya. We're not sure there either. Must be some cloudy days. And Nevados de Chilean, not sure there either. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. There's where things will be on December 2nd. By the way, we're looking at theplanetstoday.com. If you want to check out that same model yourself. It's a little limited, but it's still good. Also in-the-sky.org. We feature this daily, as I'm always interested in what's going on above my head. What time will Cygnus rise, you ask? Cygnus X3, otherwise Deneb. Largely believed to be the other North Pole, the other end of the precessional cycle. We won't get into it. What we will get into is some stuff about the sunspot cycle in Robitaille's paper. 40 proofs that support a liquid metallic hydrogen sun. Let's talk about the Maunder minimum as it's mentioned, where one of the ideas that Robitaille states is that the sun may be entering another minimum in 2013 as solar activity drops to a 100-year low. Now, part of the entire purpose of our channel is to study the sun at its time of minimum, to try to understand as many correlational variables as we possibly can. And incidentally, the gaseous models of the sun with the nuclear dynamo core and all that cartoonish nonsense that's basically just made up. How could it be so bright? It must be a nuclear bomb going off inside. It's a hydrogen bomb that just sits there and suspends its perfect surface via gas pressure and all this other stuff that has no basis in observational science. Anyway, read the paper by Robitaille. It's the best 53 pages you may read. I don't know. It's the implications to cosmology are vast. Let's just say that. And what causes the sunspot cycle? Well, the outgassing of intercalate layers. What else? Here's Robitaille's video about that. If you'd like to know about intercalate layers, I'll try to click and click and click and pause the video to not cause that sound effect stuff to come through, so I can quote Robitaille here when he's talking about intercalate layers. So anyway, gases build up in between the lattice, and you get things called coronal holes. And
in a sense, they become trapped. Note that whenever a hexagonal structure like graphite is found, it is possible that intercalate regions exist.
So anyway, view that video also. We've linked it below this. But don't tune out those at the premiere, as there's still lots of stuff to cover, such as our daily star coverage. Are you a star? Do you have a specific star that you'd like us to cover? Is it in the list of nearest stars and brown dwarfs? Is it on this list? Anyway, today's star shall be Tau Ceti. This is one of those ones that's featured all over pop culture. There's even a movie starring Uma Thurman, apparently, which is in, what is it, pre-production? Tau Ceti 4, as it's widely believed to have many planets around it. We've linked to all this information here. It's located at 12 light years from your local yellow dwarf, aka the sun, you know, where you live, on that B field around that star, you know, that yellow dwarf star. Anyway, it's a quite a stable star, and it's metal deficient. And there's a big giant debris field around it. We've left links to all this stuff. Here's a large image of that dense and large cold disk of cometary and asteroid material. So there's a lot of stuff going on around this single star. Again, we've linked to all those sites. And looking at lightningmaps.org, we are looking at where the lightning is striking. And there's where it is now. It's 429. Do you know where your lightning is? Now we're into the value-added services here, showing you the U.S. Doppler radar. As snow continues to fall in Wyoming and North Dakota and Montana. And we're not going to look at tropical tidbits. Look at the heavy snow in northern Maine. Son of a beehive. That is a serious setup up there. Let's zoom in for once. Yowzers. Look at that counterclockwise rotating low. Man, oh man. If I had some cross-country skis, I would be killing it up there right now. Here's a water vapor map. We've only got 10 frames today. We don't have time to show you more than 10 frames. That is a heavy low up there in Maine, though. Let's just take a quick look at that. It's too tempting, folks. It's too tempting. You gotta love the atmosphere. Check it out. By the way, the pressure of the high pressure causes the low pressure. Southern Maine is saying, welcome to the protons. Anyway, folks, if you've got clear skies tonight, check out the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. It's going to be good. And we're moving on to more stuff. I swear, I'm not going to show you a white screen. I don't know what we are looking at here. It's supposed to be null school. There we go. How about some jet streams? There's a Western world. Here's the Eastern world. And let's move on to that's censored and that's a sinkhole. Yet another reason to visit the Lehigh Valley. Not just to ride with some of the best cyclists in the world on the regs in the wintertime, in the summertime, or any time. To go to the Christkindlmarkt. Check it out. There's the food court. It looks epic. And it is epic, by the way. I've been to the real Christkindlmarkt, the one in Nuremberg, and it's pretty epic. But the one in Bethlehem's pretty good, too. Check out Main Street on historic Bethlehem. Built by legit Moravians. If you want to buy a legit Moravian star, head to the Moravian bookstore. It's the real deal. I have one as a tree topper, and it's the ultimate tree topper. Seriously, the Moravian star. Check it out. Moravian bookstore. Do you want to trip balls? Just kidding, folks. Don't overdose on nutmeg. It'll make you itchy. But there's probably people tripping balls right now because, because it's the holiday season, and we've added nutmeg to the coffee. Now there's more stuff in the coffee. And I'm not tripping balls because we don't add that much. We use it as a spice. In addition to the cinnamon and the cocoa powder and the coconut oil and the cayenne pepper, we add nutmeg. So go organic with your coffee, folks. If you're drinking non-organic coffee, get the hell off of the non-organic coffee. It's the most heavily sprayed plant in the world. Myristicin is the thing that could make you trip balls. Again, don't overdose on nutmeg. It'll make you sick. And it is a precursor, though, to MMDA. Just saying. Let's talk about ecological disasters. Felis domesticus is responsible for killing billions of animals, birds and mammals, per year. Now, I'm not anti-cats. In fact, I had a cat as a pet when I was about 8 years old. His name was Clyde, after the What is going on? His name was Clyde after the Pac-Man ghost. Anyway, according to Business Insider, cats kill over 1 billion animals per year. Now, Felis domesticus is an absolute pest. It's an ecological disaster. One of the worst ecological disasters ever wrought by mankind onto the North American continent. So, not really a fan. As now, of course, if it's a house cat that stays indoors, or if it's a farm cat that is there to pest control your farm areas, that's an entirely different scenario. That's a working animal or a legitimate pet. You can have invasive species in an aquarium or inside your house. Don't let your freaking cat go roam the neighborhood, folks. Your neighbors might have bird feeders, and your neighbors might feel like shooting those cats in the head. Just saying. And I'm not making any statements about the legality of any of this, but cats that are not in your house or on your farm are an invasive species, and they're a mess. Please keep them indoors for their own safety. Again, I'm not anti-cat. Now, let's talk about somebody who has a special place in hell, responsible for probably the worst single-person ecological disaster in the history of North America, Eugene Schieffelin. Eugene Schieffelin. Now, this is the guy who released the Sturnus vulgaris, otherwise known as the common starling, on purpose on 2 separate occasions into Central Park. First he put 60 down, and then he put another 40. After 2 failed attempts, 60 starlings were released into New York Central Park. Why, you ask? Now, we're anticipating that there are about 1 billion starlings in the North American continent now, and these are major problems to birds such as purple martin, flicker, and I'm not sure what else, but in 1890, Mr. Schieffelin released 60 starlings into Central Park, and then 40 birds in 1891. And by the 1970s, they'd reached the West Coast. Some people blame the introduction of starlings to the West Coast to increasing peregrine falcon populations after DDT got banned. So anyway, it's apparently because of the American Acclimatization Society, which is a group who believes that, well, nobody should have to go through their life without being around the animals that are represented in Shakespearean poetry. Anyway, Schieffelin's attempts to release bullfinches, shellfinches, nightingales, and skylarks were not successful, thank goodness. But starlings are probably the worst man-made ecological disaster in the history of North America, especially when considering one idiot accomplished all of that. Thanks, Eugene. Well done. Well done. Pardon the sarcasm, viewers. By the way, if you enjoy the content, please support the channel on Patreon, the real source of funding for this channel, patreon.com/smAsho. Let's talk about other vultures. Are you a wildlife fanatic? Are you all about understanding nature and what's good for the environment and what's bad for the environment? I certainly am. And just because I don't believe carbon dioxide is any sort of a pollutant doesn't mean I'm not concerned about pollution. I'm very concerned about the ecological and socioeconomic and other kinds of disasters that have swept the planet. We've got wonderful news, though. It looks like Bernie has recovered just fine from his heart attack. And for that, we thank you. We thank you, Senator Sanders, for all of your contributions to the political dialogue. For all you folks who've donated $27, I hope you're not the poor, because he's been doing damage to the poor. He doesn't understand the Federal Reserve. He should probably retire. Please leave a comment if you think we should also mummify Bernie. I would donate to that cause. What say you? As I do have problems with government overreach, and I have since I was approximately 4 years old, as the government has been doing things I don't like since before I even went to kindergarten. Some politicians won't even wait for Congress to act. They'll just take executive action to create open borders, to import more voters. Now, let's talk about Elon. Elon has decided to roll out this truck. Look at this hideous monstrosity of a disaster out of a Terminator movie, bastardized with Back to the Future graphics. Ew. I nearly vomited. I think I dry heaved when I first saw this thing. Now, of course, if you want me to test one out, Elon, as I'm a professional driver, please donate one to our company. I'll make it happen. Send an email, smashomash@gmail.com. Send us an email. We'll test it out. I won't shoot any rounds at it, as it's not worth wasting rounds on. But I'll drive it around. Sure, whatever. Anyway, Elon's trying to get himself in jail once again by claiming that there's 187,000, which I think is now 200,000, orders for this disaster. And it's a fanboy thing. It's let's talk about the SEC. The SEC is, in the U.S., we call it the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's responsible for investigating investment crimes, like when people mislead their shareholders by suggesting things that aren't true are. And Tesla could have already over 200,000 deposits for the Cybertruck. Okay, sure it does. Those are not orders. And once again, is it a corporate anarchy? Stay tuned for a bonus feature, Smash Team. It's 9 hours or 304 angstroms in the southern pole view area there. Your local yellow dwarf. Please leave any comments directed at the sun, as it's directing things at you on the regs. In any case, there's the northern area. Stare at the sun. Don't drink. Especially don't drive. Seriously, don't drive. Police patrols will be on the rise all week. Don't drive. I don't want to see you out there. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.